Good evening, and thanks everybody for sticking with us. You know, a few months ago, Sheriff Wilson hosted a meeting in his county, invited myself and some other sheriffs up and Southern Oregon sheriffs up, and it was about, I heard a little bit about Fred Kelly Grant and the 10th Amendment, did a little more reading on it. Of course, I heard it in my county from some citizen groups, and that was very educational. A couple of years ago, we learned also about the travel management plan and decommissioning of roads, and my supervisor, he's here tonight with me, Supervisor Les Baugh, we held a rally with citizens near the U.S. Forest Service to basically, don't tread on us, and this is our land, and you're shutting us out, the citizens of America, and that's a big concern. Fortunately, the Board of Supervisors, they enacted coordination in March of 2010. Our Public Works Director went out and surveyed the roads they wanted to change, and we went back with them. And so far, we're waiting to hear back from them, but things are looking pretty good, looking smooth. We'll see where that takes us, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. Many of the things I'm going to talk about is the sheriffs are all facing here in their counties too. Illegal marijuana, and this is being primarily grown on public lands. Primarily California, we've been invaded by a group of well-armed, well-financed, and well-organized armed foreign nationals on American soil. They're doing illegal activities. They're shooting at our citizens, killing our citizens, taking our game, and ruining our environment for our use. And we've talked about harvest plans and how many hundreds of thousands of dollars legitimate businesses have to go to try and get a piece of lumber done, but they don't have harvest plans. Well, they have harvest plans, but they're all illegal. And nor do they care about the environment, and that's huge, but yet our federal land, quote, management agencies haven't done a whole lot to manage those. It usually falls to the responsibility of the sheriffs. And so if they were going to have that responsibility, we should have the funding that's coming from the federal government to better manage those lands and protect our citizens. Proposition 215, the Compassionate Use Act, medical marijuana, that's been a huge, huge escalating problem. Don't want to say growing because that might be a pun. But finally, a lot of citizens are standing up and saying, you know, enough is enough. It's not what it was designed for, or it's being abused. You might see some involvement by the federal government recently. We're going to see how that develops, but there still needs to be changes there. Land use, I talked a little bit about, but it still needs to be monitored closely, and don't let it creep up. You saw the map of the United States with all the red on it, and those monuments, and there was some another seminar I went to at our logging conference in Shasta County. The other parts that we're concerned about, and our supervisor took this on a few months ago, was tank, which they were going to try and put big transmission lines across everybody's property, but not really pay them for it. It was going to ruin their land values. And that started out as a grassroots effort, and it finally got derailed a couple of years ago because of public interest and public involvement, and it got a life of its own, and it finally stopped it. Well, it stopped it for now, because I think at some point it'll probably come back. And my supervisor in the back, he can talk a little bit more. Hey, Les, will you hold up your hand? He's right there in the back. Supervisor Les Baugh, thanks. And you're hearing a little bit about, in the newspaper, Assembly Bill 109, the prison realignment. That's a big concern because a lot of money, they're shifting prisoners to the county responsibility, parolees. They're not opening the gates of the prisons and letting people run out, but they're usually people that will be returning here anyway. And if that money dries up, we'll still be, all the counties will be on the hook for that responsibility. And where's that money coming from? Because we know the financial ability of our counties here in Northern California is not very good. We're kind of living year to year on our budgets, and they're pretty tight. So we still have to, we're closely working as state sheriffs with our association to work with the governor's office and work with the legislature to try and get that more balanced so at least the funding comes there. You know, and also I'd like to thank Sheriff Lopi not only for getting this meeting together, but we saw these land use issues, going back to that, coming up. He saw that, and he asked to form a lands use committee with the California State Sheriff's Association and ad hoc committee, and all of us are on that committee right now. There's a couple of other sheriffs on it, and then we're going to be watching and monitoring, meeting with some of those land agencies. We've named them off here: Fish and Game and Forest Service, BLM, and the others, to try and take that on statewide as an association with 58 total county sheriffs. And then there's the Western States Association of Sheriffs, so that's basically west here, the Rockies, and that's on their radar screen. And then also the National Sheriff's Association, and that's starting to come up on their radar screen. So we're starting to also collaborate and come together as a united front of sheriffs to address these issues that do impact us all. And go ahead. And Sheriff Lopi says, yeah, the basic thing is safety, because many things do boil down to public safety. But before we can be fit, either mentally or physically fit, before we can be educated either ourselves or for our children and our grandchildren, before we can enjoy the great North State here, or our parks and the outdoors, even our homes, the businesses to thrive, we have to be safe. And government's first responsibility, and that's been said many times, it's in our California Constitution, Ronald Reagan has said it, is government's first responsibility is to protect its citizens. So thank you all very much for being here. We're trying to stay the watch and work on those issues, but most importantly, we need your help, and that's great that you're helping by being involved in this, because without it, we cannot be effective. We can't stand alone, but thank you all very much for coming.